Hi guys, I'm going to give you an introduction to literacy and multimodal learning for struggling readers. Casey, Paul, and I actually made a version of this presentation at the North Carolina Reading Association. I'm going to cover 4 points. First of all, I want to talk about poverty and what it looks like, because there is a high correlation between poverty and students who are low SES and students who struggle with reading. Secondly, we're going to talk about how poverty affects children's literacy in school. And then third, what literacy strategies are effective for struggling readers. And then finally, what is multimodality? What does that word mean? And how can it support struggling readers? So first of all, what does poverty look like in North Carolina and at the national level? Well, a few stats for you to consider. Only 53% of children ages 3 to 5 were read to daily by a family member. And that was some data that came out in 2015, which I think is pretty startling. Children and families with incomes below the poverty line are less likely to be read to aloud every day than children in families with incomes at or above the poverty level. And you already know this data, but it's interesting to actually see the actual stats on these issues. Also, children in low-income families have access to fewer reading materials than children of middle and upper income families. And so for those of you who are working with young children and early reading, you know how important it is to have these materials, print and or digital materials, in order for students to get that alphabet code and understand print at an early age. And the more types of reading materials there are in the home, the higher the students are in reading proficiency. A few more stats. A poor child in an affluent county has only a 6% chance of moving up in the income ladder by adulthood. And this was based on Public Schools First in North Carolina, 2015, so recent data. And 1 in 5 people in North Carolina live in poverty, which is sort of startling. 53% of public school students live in poverty, which is the 15th highest in the United States. Now here is a chart that is very interesting, because you can see the percentage of free and reduced lunches in the different counties. So the darker the county, the higher the free and reduced lunch. So the darkest is 91 to 100%, and the lightest is 21 to 30%. But you can see that this distribution all throughout our state of North Carolina in terms of free and reduced lunch. So how does poverty affect children's literacy in school? And I want you to think about this, because you all work with students who are living in poverty or have a low SES background, and so you're confronted with this on a daily basis, and we have to stop and think, how can we be effective with these children, because it's so important. So first of all, if we look at the NAEP data, and these are the 4th grade mean reading scores, and you can see here from 2013 to 2015 the national average, the state average, and then the scores for those who are eligible for free and reduced lunch. And you see that there is a gap, 26, the gap is 26 and then 27, and this was again for 2013 and 2015. But then you see here, this was for the 4th grade mean reading scores, and then here you can see it's broken down by African American, Latino, and white, Caucasian, and then you can see the differences in the scores there. So again, race, ethnicity also is a factor. The same thing for 8th grade mean reading scores. You can see it's broken down by African American, Latino, and white. And again, in 2013, for whites, we had 273 and then 271, 258 for Latino, 252, and then 251, and then 243, which is kind of interesting because it's like the numbers are going the wrong way, right? Now, did you know that children in poverty hear about 600 words per hour, while affluent children hear 2,000 words per hour? Again, startling statistics, because you know the correlation between being able to hear language and then being able to understand, comprehend, and actually produce language. And then 1 in 6 will not graduate from high school on time and are likely to drop out if not reading proficiently by the end of 3rd grade. And those of you who teach in the early grades know about the North Carolina policy, Read to Achieve, and how we want to have our students reading by end of 3rd grade, and you all have felt the strain from the policies of trying to get these students to pass these tests so that they will not be retained. Now, what literacy strategies are effective based on research? First of all, I wanted to just highlight some books, especially if you're interested in children who are living in poverty, and what are some strategies that have been proven to be effective. These are some very good books that you can check out if you haven't read Lisa Delpit's Other People's Children, and then also The Dream Keepers, which I love this book by Gloria Ladson Billings. These are wonderful books. If you haven't had a chance to read those, please do. But in terms of reading, we know that reading happens in a socio-cultural context, and it is an interaction between the text, activities that you do, and the reader. And this is a report, Reading for Understanding, by the RAND report that came out in 2002, and it has really shaped reading policy quite a bit nationally. And this is a heuristic for thinking about reading comprehension. So one of the things we know in terms of strategies, Susan Newman's work, is that the most successful way to improve the reading achievement of low-income children is to increase their access to print. And this was done back in 2000, and she would probably add to the print, she would probably add digital context as well today. But we know that an abundance of books in public libraries, easy access to books in the community, and large number of textbooks per student, all of these are very, very important. And these are the factors that are important in communities ranking in high achievement test scores. Okay, just having access to books obviously is not enough, but it is an absolute first step. And then students must also find books that match their tastes and interests, which we know all about that. And it pays to be proactive and guide students to try to find different books until they find something that they really enjoy. And as a teacher, you know how important it is for you as a teacher to understand students' interests so that you can guide them and be persistent until you find a book that they really enjoy, a topic that they enjoy reading. Richard Allington has probably done the best work and the most comprehensive work in terms of pointing out what really matters when you're talking about struggling readers. And here are a list of the important factors for what you need to do with your struggling readers. Matching that reader and the text level is key. Building that background knowledge is important. Expanding the reading activity, using small groups or tutoring. I mean, we know that if we always do whole group instruction, your struggling readers are not going to make the gains. So you have to get that one-on-one tutoring or even at least small group in order to make that intervention work. Definitely interventions by an expert teacher, and that's why you guys are in this program, is to learn how to do those kinds of interventions. Metacognition and meaning are important, and obviously texts that are interesting, and bridging home and school. And that's such a key component for the struggling reader. Another aspect that I wanted to talk about is multimodality. So what exactly do we mean by multimodality? There's a lot of theoretical work that's been done on this in the field of literacy. It means the description of texts and documents that include more than one mode of meaning making. So it could be print text, but it obviously can be digital as well. So video, music, podcasts, infographics, you guys have already done one of those in class. In this course, graphs, charts, rating scales, anything that diversifies the meaning and gives you different representations of the meaning that is trying to be expressed. Now, here are some of the key scholars in multimodality, and I don't know if you're interested in pursuing this topic any further, but if you want to understand the theories more, you can certainly read some of the theorists. They go into a lot of detail, and there's been quite a bit of research done on the power of multimodality. So Jewett says that multimodality is the form of representation. The form of representation is integral to meaning and learning more generally. And I've been doing a lot of work in inquiry-based learning, and this week or next week you're going to be doing your planning for your PBI project. So we want you to think about multimodal learning, because you're certainly going to be using digital tools to integrate into your PBI project. But here are some ways that you can use inquiry and multimodality in that PBI project. And here are some things, again, building on what we know about struggling readers. It's important for motivation and choice, motivation and engagement. Choice is key. Purposeful, authentic learning is very key in inquiry learning. Building that background knowledge and skills. Collaboration, thinking about literacy as a social process. And we do a lot of that when we're doing the inquiry projects. Teachers providing the scaffolds and the guidance, thinking about differentiation, using an iterative design, and this whole idea of knowledge creation. And I love to use this inverted Bloom's taxonomy when I talk about knowledge creation, because the Bloom's taxonomy has create at the top, but we like to flip it so that you have create at the top, but you have a broader base for create. Because the idea here is we want to, in the inquiry process and using multimodality with our learners, readers, we want to spend more time on creativity, and so we actually put it at the top with our larger base. So those are just a few ideas about multimodality and the struggling reader, and some of the ideas that you can draw from the research as you think about your PBI project and as you continue through the lesson this week. Thank you.